On John Mason, to be followed by Ross Greer.
Thank you very much, Presiding Officer. I appreciate the opportunity to speak on the budget again today. And as I was preparing, I thought I hate to think that Murdo Fraser would be bored with my repeating myself again today by saying that we can only spend the money we have, and demands for further spending by the Conservatives or anyone else are pretty pointless if we do not know where the money is coming from. However, perhaps I can change tack a bit today by focusing more on some of the good things that are coming out of this budget. And firstly, for me, one of these is housing, and I particularly welcome £831 million for affordable housing. Now, I get the point that we need to invest in many other things like skills and a whole range of other less tangible assets, which are important for the future. However, I still think there is something incredibly important about investing in bricks and mortar, and I always get a boost when I see a new housing development in my constituency. A new affordable home can mean an overcrowded family who could not afford to heat some old drafty damp building are able to move into a modern home which is easier and cheaper to heat, perhaps to Passive House standards, and where the young people have an opportunity and a space to study. Again, we see investment in public transport and active travel, and I very much welcome the investment of £1,396 million in rail, £413 million on buses, including concessionary fares, and £150 million on active travel. I'd like us just to think about the amount we support the rail industry. That is £258 per person by my calculations. Now, members know that I am very much in favour of rail, but I think it is worth emphasising just how much is being invested. Every person in this country, whether with a train line or not, pays £258 for the railways each year. And maintaining rail, as well as other public transport, continues to be a challenge because of COVID, with passenger numbers still around only 50% of pre-pandemic, and fares income is down in line with that. It's all very well for some opposition parties saying they want increased services despite the lack of passenger demand. They want lower fares, more routes, and better terms and conditions for the staff. But all of these come at a cost. Of course, we do want people to switch from car to rail, but at the same time, we cannot afford to run trains with hardly any passengers on them. Buses are also clearly important, carrying many more passengers than trains do. But passenger numbers have been declining over a number of years in Glasgow and the west of Scotland. Ownership of buses may be a factor, but I do not believe it is the major one. Lothian Buses told us that they would run in very much the same way, whoever owned them. Rather, in the west of Scotland, we have an excellent local train service, and clearly the buses struggle to compete on speed and comfort, even though the buses are cheaper and, in fact, free for some people. Having said that, I do very much welcome the £110 million to give free bus travel for under 22s. Hopefully, this will get more young people into the habit of using the bus, and so in due course they will become paying passengers. Again, we could mention health, another area where we can welcome the spending of £12.9 billion for health boards as part of the total £18 billion budget. Doubling the Scottish Child Payment from April, costing £197 million, is hugely good news, and hopefully will make a big impact on where child poverty would have been like otherwise. For local government, the extra £120 million announcement is very welcome and hopefully gives our councils a bit more room for manoeuvre. I know they would certainly like more certainty further ahead, as would a number of other sectors, including colleges and universities. However, that in turn brings up the question of how much certainty the Scottish Government and we in the Scottish Parliament have about our funding. And the answer to that is not very much. Even today, we have heard from the Cabinet Secretary about the lack of certainty she has on UK funding announcements. Is the £290 million to tackle increased energy costs new money, or is it a reallocation from existing budgets? That makes a huge difference as to our spending ability. Here we are at stage 3 of the budget for next year, and we are still very uncertain about the budget for this year. And that is not even to mention the problem we have had in several recent years of having to start our budget process before Westminster has formally started theirs. I do not want to get into the fiscal framework in this debate today, but it would help all of us hugely if Westminster would set its budget during the autumn so that we would then have a better idea of where we stood. The budget seeks both to maintain current public services but also to do new things like the child payment and more childcare. And that is not an easy balance to strike. It's always a tension. Should we pay existing workers more, or should we expand services and take on new workers? Should we make existing train lines better, or should we create new lines? There are no easy answers to these questions, and somehow we have to try to do both. But I do think that this budget does make a good attempt to do what it can on both fronts. We see continuing finance for valuable existing services in health, local government and elsewhere, but we also see expansion into significant new areas. So overall, I'm happy to support this budget. We would all like to do more in a whole range of sectors. But just like every individual and every organisation in Scotland, we have a limited amount of money available, and I consider that this budget does well at using our resources wisely and effectively. So I hope all parties will see the huge benefits coming from this budget and will support it at decision time, as I certainly will be doing. Thank you.